Hello and welcome to the Solution Provider Focus on Meet the Boss TV. I'm Adam Burns and in this program, SmartOrg, a leading provider of value-based management solutions. And the man I'm here to meet, David Matheson, their President and CEO. Selecting and managing projects and portfolios is risky business, especially in the face of intense competition, scarce resources and project uncertainty. David Matheson's value statement is simple. He helps senior management improve their results. And later in the program, we'll be finding out how SmartOrg tackles the problem of identifying genuine value drivers for your business. But first, and to frame that conversation, I wanted to ask about a recent innovation study which shows that between 40 and 75% of all new products fail to meet their forecast revenues and profits, which means a lot of money left on the table and a lot of money completely wasted. I want to know why David thinks this is.
The key has to do really with what it means to fail. Now, we have looked at many dimensions of failure, and you could think of innovation as doing work around three basic questions. Can we do it? Should we do it? Does anybody care? Now, here's the thing. We've done studies of companies in terms of what they're strong at and what they're weak at. If you ask companies what they're bad at, uniformly the greatest weakness is the strategic and economic question. So the very thing that leads to the failure they're worried about, the revenue, not being able to deliver on the wealth creation opportunities of innovation, is precisely because companies are not very good at this strategic and economic thinking. What's needed is to raise the bar on the critical thinking around these strategic and economic questions throughout the innovation process.
Absolutely. Let's look at some sort of best practice examples if we can. What about companies that are good at that? What do they do?
Well, so companies, HP is a wonderful example. They're a tremendously innovative company. In fact, probably get one of the world's records for just relentless innovation over decades. Now, in a recent round of kind of new business creation and innovation, and using the kinds of methods that SmartOrg has, they have looked at about 30 new business ideas, have launched about 15 of them. So, not every new idea is a good one, but still 50% is a pretty good rate. 70% of these projects involve some significant new kind of innovation, either around the business model or the technology or the new market space. One example of these kinds of projects is called LightScribe. It's HP's only inside brand. You might have this on a computer and not even realize it. It's a DVD labeling system. This was an idea that came out of their innovation process, started approximately 2000, maybe 2002, something in that area.
Obviously, you've got some examples of best practice there with HP. What about normal companies then? What is the difference?
Well, so most companies treat this economic question like a business case. There's sort of nothing wrong with business case thinking. It's the way it's done. So what you typically do is you take something you actually know very little about, and you make a bunch of assumptions. And you manipulate the assumptions in order to get a business case that's good enough. Sometimes we call this the big lie you tell to get funding. Robin Carroll used to be the CEO of the Product Development Management Association. And I once asked her, in her many decades of experience, what some of the top things were that she felt led to product failure. And she said, improper evaluation is one of the big issues. And she has a nice little quip. She said, treating an evaluation as a task rather than as a conversation. So what she's saying is, it's all about the strategic thinking that goes into that, and that debate and dialogue that tells you what it is that's going to make this project really work.
What would be some of the key assumptions that people make?
Well, so the key assumptions typically are around, say, the market size. So who in the world, the universe, might be interested in this project. Around the penetration of the technology. So if you're dealing with something new and interesting, say, creative printing, it's not clear that people will accept that idea quickly.
So you talk about uncertainty there, but innovation by its very nature has to be a venture into the unknown. How do you help with that assessment of risk?
Well, that's a great question, you see, and almost baked into the way you've asked it is a kind of assumption that it's about risk. So risk for people means downside generally, the fear, what could go wrong. And actually, that's an important part of the discussion, but it's not the place to start or really the only part. What people miss when they think about uncertainty, which is the word I prefer, because it includes both downside and upside. See, the key question is, how big could the upside be, and how do I make it happen, And how do I know if I'm on that path to upside, as opposed to maybe a less desirable scenario where I'd like to maybe push the big red button and try something different.
Let's talk about people that do that well then. Have you got any examples?
A great example is a little company called Inspire Pharmaceuticals. Now, they had a project where they were considering buying a drug candidate from another company, which is fairly common in this industry. Looked like a really good opportunity for them, something if it worked, they could really develop it. The problem was the intellectual property around this product wasn't completely solid. So what had happened is over the course of 2 full years, we had the powerful project advocates would kind of get enough power, and they'd take the project and they'd move it forward, and then the project detractors would get scared because, ooh, the IP's not quite right, and then they'd drag it back. And this has been going sort of back and forth, not getting made for two years. Well, they finally decided to sort of shine some light on the uncertainty. And so what they did is they did some uncertainty analysis of this project, looking at both what happens if the key patent claims are allowed, what happens if they're not allowed. They also looked at other key uncertainties like the market share and the market size and the cost and all these kinds of things. Turns out, when they started to look at that more closely, like, wait a minute, it's not about this negative thing, it's about the upside here, right? So they start to look into the upside. What makes that high? Turns out it's whether or not it can be used in children. So this is a product that they had envisioned being done with an IV, right? Not something you get to kids very easily. So they switched it over and looked at an alternative formulation that was done with an inhaler, something kids can use. And the thing about IP is, the happy ending of the story, is that you can protect the inhaler. So you don't actually need full protection on the drug in the same way.
All well and good, but how do SmartOrg show uncertainty in their software?
Each tornado diagram gives you on a single project the range of uncertainty for that project. So when you do that across many projects, you get a whole series of ranges, like I've illustrated here on this graphic. I've shown many projects from breast strips, laser lithography, all the way down to purse bags here, and shown the range in that tornado diagram on each one. Now what you see from this project is a couple things. First of all, the upside of that first project is bigger than most of the other projects. So instead of going, which project should I cut or not, maybe the first question is, how do I make that first one really great? Because focus might be a tremendously good answer to drive value from innovation. A second thing you notice on that is there are a whole lot of projects which have pretty mediocre values. And those are the ones that you probably need to walk away from. How do you make that trade-off between those innovative but highly uncertain projects and the more kind of bread and butter, if you will? So what I'm showing here is a kind of scatter plot in which every dot represents a project. On the y-axis here is the probability of success, that you'll be able to actually deliver and launch that project. On the x-axis is the value if it's successful. And so you get 4 quadrants. In the upper left are easy projects that have incremental value. In the lower right, you have difficult projects, low probability of success, but they could be game changers if they work. And in the upper right, we have pearls, because of course you open enough oysters and you get a pearl. A pearl is easy and has a whole lot of value.
So how do you tackle the problem of identifying genuine business value and sort of driving through that problem, tackling those results?
Well, so the key is to make a kind of map of how value is created in your organization. It's a little bit different for different companies, and getting kind of agreement on where these dimensions are and doing the analysis so you understand what that really is. A good example of this is Boeing. So in their Dreamliner work, their new airplane they're working on right now, there are a lot of design choices and trade-offs to be made in the context of innovating and developing that plane. So now I have a quote from the guy who runs this process and manages for Boeing. He says, "We create a value map to identify where value comes from by asking what creates value and what destroys value. We get a lot of new and innovative ideas from understanding where this value lies."
I can see that for something like Boeing, which is an awful lot of complex projects. What are the benefits for somebody with a simpler business model?
Well, so let's take packaging, for example. So one of our packaging customers had a very interesting business challenge. They did bag-in-box packaging. This is the sort of thing that you use to do wine in the box, which is common across the world, and actually premium products in some parts of the world, or soda fountains. Used to come in stainless steel containers, now they come in bag-in-box. So this is a tremendously innovative company that has reinvented these industries. But their business problem is this gets duplicated over time. The CEO says, we need more innovation, we have to return to our roots and get some more innovation. And you know what? The organization responds. And he's got tons of project proposals. They have 70 active projects of significance. Now the executives sit down, they're like, what are we going to do? Because this is too many. In our guts, we think maybe we can do 20. And they're in the situation where they're spending more time arguing about what to do than they are actually developing the projects. This is a pretty acute kind of resource constraint problem. They tried everything. I mean, they tried scoring rules and project management methods and resource managers and so on. Nothing's working for them. And they finally take the step of getting really clear about the economic value. And they map this out in a very transparent way so that the executives know it, so that the project managers know it. And you know what they find? Some projects are creating a whole lot of value. Some projects have upside potential, and if only they could make that happen, that would be great. And if they can't make it happen, they should probably cancel it. But a whole lot of these projects are teeny. And what happens is when they got clear about that value, most of the project leaders voluntarily canceled their own projects. In fact, just kind of crawled away. Because you see, those guys don't want to be working on things that are going to be minor impacts either. It's just that they don't know. That conversation had never really happened. And so that kind of spontaneous whittling down of projects, just because everyone was so much smarter about value, took the number of projects from about 70 down to about 25. Now, there's some still tough calls for the executives to make. But now they're dealing with going from 25 to 20, which is a completely different scale of the problem.
Absolutely. So I'm getting this idea that SmartOrg is about clarity, and it's about providing sort of firm metrics, I guess, or drives around being able to make business decisions. But let's cut through the clutter and the words and the verbiage and all that. What actually does it do for the bottom line?
Oh, that's, I think it does a lot for the bottom line. So if we start with my HP example, that's a great example of how raising the bar on critical thinking about economic and strategic issues can really help projects. As I said before, they launched 15 new businesses on that. So that's the project level. Now if you move to the next level, the portfolio. Suppose you're the guy who's trying to figure out which area to evaluate, which area to invest in, how to allocate some resources across an area. And across a portfolio, the benefits really add up. A great example of this would be from Chevron. In their energy and technology company, a little group called Heavy Oil implemented a portfolio navigator system. Now, they saw results after a first year. And I have a quote from the head of the Heavy Oil division who I think sums this up. He says, in the first year of deployment, we had a 100% increase in our portfolio returns from $40 million to $80 million. So moving from the portfolio level, let's go to the corporate level. And these kind of benefits can really drive profitable growth at a level that makes a difference for a corporation. A great example of this is Dow Agro. They've been doing a lot of innovation around portfolio management, including, among many things, installing a portfolio navigator system. Now, success has many fathers, but they attribute a good piece of this success to this innovation around portfolio management. Now, they've been going around to conferences giving a presentation, which is called Delivering $1 Billion. And I think that pretty much says it all.
David, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Much appreciated.